Welcome back to the Dear Global Leader podcast. I'm super excited to have a new guest today, and this is Leila Elifaksoy. You're the Deputy Country Manager of Salesforce Denmark. It's
Mhm.
super great to have you today. You were also ex-CISO sales leader, so a long career already in leadership behind you, and also something we got to know each other because I went to attend a lot of your talk on women in tech and inclusive leadership, and I just thought that it would be fantastic for to have you on the podcast. So thank you so much to be here today, and we will discuss a bit two topics, a bit on your job of the
Mhm.
right hand of a country leader. So what does it mean, and secondly a bit your leadership style and what can we learn from it.
Got it. Thank you very much for allowing me to join your podcast. I'm looking forward to the next hour of great discussions.
Super. And as I was explaining, now we are doing this hour in two parts. So we will jump now into the part one. That will be a bit the backstage about being the right hand of the country manager. And usually we always start with a first question that is, what was the pivot that brought you where you are in your career? So if you
hmm
can tell a bit about yourself through a pivot in your life or career.
I think when I thought about it, what really pivoted me the direction that I am now, I think there wasn't one determining factor that made it happen. I think for me, I kept on saying yes to challenges. So being challenged and complexity and those kind of things really drove me. So I always have this attitude of saying yes to things I haven't tried before. And the more I challenge myself, the more I love what I'm doing. So I need to be constantly challenged. And that have led me to the career that I have now. So it wasn't that I necessarily had a path that I was going after. It was more the assignments in itself was really interesting for me, which has led me to where I am today.
Yeah, and the openness to the assignment, especially.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I was just open to whatever that take took me. And sometimes when I look back at my own career, and there has been jobs where I didn't get them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now looking back, it's like, oh, amazing, I didn't do that because otherwise this wouldn't have opened and this wouldn't have like led me to where I am now. But you don't necessarily always see it in that position. But a couple of years later, you look back and you're like, that was absolutely the best thing that could happen to you.
Yeah, the reflective part.
Yes.
Love that. I then wanted that we start directly into understanding what does a deputy country manager means. I understood that it means a bit like the right hand of a country head, but
Yeah.
maybe in your own words, what does it mean?
So it's one of those roles where it's not always visible for everybody what a deputy country manager do. But what we often do is it's a close collaboration with the country manager, and it's is a tightness between the two of you in terms of bouncing off ideas, what's going to happen with the countries, what are the initiatives that we're running, how we're doing on culture, what are we doing on talent, those kind of things. And before those decisions are being made publicly, it's like you have been able to discuss that with the country manager and probably also the leadership team, of course. So it's you're trying to form the strategy for the country going ahead. Yeah.
And can you also explain, because I think a lot of the listener are not yet a country manager, so maybe for a lot of them it won't, even for me, we don't know
Mm.
exactly what is the backstage of leading a country. If you could just
Mm.
explain a bit in practice, what does it mean? What type of decision you need to take, or what type of, task you have to handle, a bit on the day-to-day job.
Yeah. So if you look at a country manager, you see it as bit as of a CEO of that
Hmm.
country. So he or she is basically leading the country in terms of what are the people we need on the jobs, what are the direction that we're heading in, what is the strategy, what are the numbers we want to make, how do we get there, how do we enable our teams, all those kinds of things will fall under country leadership. Often when you're a country manager, if you're associated to a larger corporation, there will be global initiatives that would be sent forward, and it's up to you to then take those initiatives and translate it into local initiatives.
Mm. Straight on point. It was actually one of my question was about how do you manage this being a bit the bridge between this global company and the global
Yeah.
initiatives, and also being the representative of a local market,
Mm.
and always goes hand in hand,
Yeah.
cascading this initiative, putting them into practice.
Yeah. So it's very much about getting the local flair and also oftentimes reporting back the feedback of the locals and saying this is not working here, or this will be different from a Danish perspective, or the customers reacts like this, or we need to tweak it, otherwise it wouldn't make sense for us to do it. So it's very much just putting a flair, a local flair, and in our case, a Danish flair to the
Mm.
initiative that will come from a global perspective. And then it's about then, okay, how do we then take that and then execute on it? But we definitely wrap our own local Danish brand around it for sure.
And can you explain a bit more, maybe not on a recent example, but something that you can take out of a pattern? What does it mean to adapt a global initiative to a local market and here the Danish flair? What do you need to consider, and what does it mean to add a bit this Danish brand?
So it can be in terms of how things are perceived in Denmark, how we
Mm-hmm.
communicate. It can
Yeah.
be on products, how we communicate it. It can be on prices, might be different from country to country. There can be many things that goes into those consideration. It is you're also the spokesperson from that company in that local market, so you also had to maintain a certain reputation around the company and what we stand for. So it's very tweaked from country to country, I will say. Some of the countries, they remind of each other quite a lot. So some of our Nordic countries, sometimes we can lean on each other.
Mm.
We have a Nordic leader as well. So sometimes we can lean on each other to get experiences from each other. But still, Denmark is very different than Sweden. Sweden is very different from Norway and so forth. So we try to tweak it as much as possible. Yeah.
And do you think also that sometimes you can have a challenges between like the global processes that you inheritate and the local, culture and patterns and all what your local colleague will expect, and then you need kind of to find a right balance for them to find each other.
I think there is. There's often, this is where culture plays a huge role, right? In Denmark, you love to be autonomous. There is not as much hierarchy. It's much more flat in Denmark than maybe it is in many other countries. But it's oftentimes I see it's not a resistance in terms of what will come from global. It's often a misunderstanding of why is it we're doing this. So as
Mm,
long as you get the context and the understanding of it, but we are doing it because this is the direction that we're heading as a company, and we believe this is the right thing to do for Denmark, then it makes sense, and people would then embrace that. But and this is coming back to, you need to be able to articulate that to the Danish leadership team and also the Danish organization in order to really them embrace what's coming from global, because otherwise it will be just one more initiative that will come from
mm,
global, and it doesn't make sense in Denmark. If you don't put it into contact, if you don't put it into making sense, then it usually don't make sense.
mm. And did you find some, I don't know, recipe that works to communicate? Because I think it's not only a country deputy job, there is a lot of like even change management or communication. As soon as there is a new initiative, you need to cascade it down. And
Yeah.
I can see it also within my organization that the highest level is very clear. The second level is just clear, and then more and more you go down, we are losing a bit.
Less clear.
It's less clear, and maybe you trained on making sure that this becomes clear, and maybe you repeat, or I don't know if you found the right spot for you. Especially, you can talk about Denmark and their culture.
Actually, I will say when we started Salesforce, we had what we call the V2 mom. So that's a strategy our CEO, Mark Benioff, puts in. This is his strategy. This is his metrics. This is his obstacles. That cascades down to the next level. They take his V2 mom and replicate theirs based on his. So you'll
Mm,
actually have a pretty clear line of everybody's priorities from CEOs, even though he's in the US, back all the way here to Denmark. And even
mm,
the people reporting into all the leadership also do the same. So it's not only a leadership cascade, it's actually all the way down to everybody working in the organization. And that makes you extremely aligned on
mm-hmm,
are we doing the right things. And every single quarter, we go back and we look at that V2 mom and we check off whether we are tracking in the right direction of what we set out. So it doesn't mean you can't change it, but it just means that it's very visible. So I would have things from my manager in my V2 mom, and my
Mm,
people reporting into me would have what's in my V2 mom in their V2 mom. So it will be connected. And I think that's a really, really brilliant way to have like the same priorities, the same strategies all the way down. We might handle them differently,
mm-hmm.
but we have the same topics or the same priorities.
And to stay connected to the goal, but
Yeah.
not the too big. Because I see this often that, the company values, everybody knows them and live by them. And then maybe the strategy they change now more regularly, maybe every 2, 3 years, they are not completely different. But then you start maybe not paying much attention to them because it's about the same word reorganized. And
Mm,
and sometimes having the steps where you adapt it to your own department and your own team is what maybe you're trying to say. The question is, how do you do this work? Is it more that you're doing it for your own personal goals and then you inform your team, or is it something you do with your team and they also influence on what will be the goal because they will have it also on their personal goal?
yeah.
How does that work,
Oftentimes
Vitumam?
you do it yourself. So I set it out for my team what I think is important and what we need to based on. So I look at my managers. He would have looked
Yeah.
at his or her manager, all the way down. But I look at his. So from his perspective, and then I take it and I apply it to my own, and then I make
Mm-hmm.
mine and I publish it, and
Mm.
then the people reporting into me take mine and they make their own. And they're
Okay.
both a personal development side, which is nobody can see, nobody shares. But then
Mm.
there's V2 Mom, where everybody can look up. So I can, you, if you work in the same company as me, you can look at what my V2 Mom would
Mm.
be and what are my measurements and things like that, which is actually really, really, really good.
Effective.
Yeah.
And do you think you do that because it's Denmark, and as you were saying, people are quite, they like being autonomous and proactive and having their own freedom to operate? That maybe I can foresee already in some other culture, maybe you have worked with, if you give them this, it could be their worst nightmare, like
Yeah,
they would
yeah,
like you to actually tell them, this is really the impact I want to see you create, and not just I will work on that.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
yeah.
so is it because it's influenced by Denmark, and maybe when you work with other country deputy manager, you can hear that they have the same system, they apply it a bit differently in their own country?
So we all work with the same tool the same way. And we're all obliged, no matter, doesn't matter which country you're in, we're all obliged to fill it in and track on it every single quarter. So we are being measured on, did we have that discussion with our team members? Did we have
Mm,
that discussion with the leadership team? Those kind of things. So we are being measured on that, which is a good thing, but how you use it will vary for sure from country to country. And how important you think that is will also
mm,
vary from country. But again, that comes back to a culture and how you
yeah.
like to work with those kind of things. In Denmark, we're normally very structured, I believe. So the more structured you are, the more clear you are, the better people feel around working in the
Mm.
direction that you want them to.
And I wanted also to ask, I mean, now that you have some sort of like standardization of your processes, do you also have certain meetings where all of the country head or also deputy country manager share some sort of like best practices? And how do
Mhm.
you use also this forum to help also back when you're back in your countries to generate a bit more growth or
Mhm.
whatever obstacle you wanted to remove?
Yeah. So we have leadership offsites or country offsites, and where they meet across countries as well. But every single week they're in forecast calls together. So they
Oh.
know what's happening in each of their countries, what are the cases that we're working on. And then, of course, it becomes very natural to reach out and say, hey, what did you do on that customer? Actually sounds really interesting. Or what is the initiative you said you were running? Maybe we could do something here. So it's very, very natural, and we're very lucky in that sense to be able
Mm,
to and want to work with each other. And then I think from a global perspective as well, you will have resources that is shared between the different countries, which also again amplifies that it's important to work cross countries as well. So people who's done something in Norway might be able to help us here in Denmark as well.
mhm. And also for us to better understand, sometimes we can see for P&L leaders, there is some sort of structure towards the year, like Q4, we're in Q4, we close the budget, we create a forecast, and then we start in Q1, and there is some sort of like a cycle business.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this applies also to country manager, if you also follow the same cycle or if you have your own, cycle. And I don't know if it's follow, as you were saying, a quarterly base or if you have a monthly base, if you can a bit explain what is the reason a bit for your year as a country head.
Yeah, so we are working this exactly like you were saying on a yearly basis. So every year we're actually closing our year here 1st of February. Then it starts a
Mm,
new year. We will have numbers, targets that we need to reach. But I think what is important and the way that we try to work out in is Denmark is really focus on what is it the difference we want to make in the market. And I truly believe, also as a person, I truly believe that if you do the right things, things will happen for you. If I'm hyper focused on this week, this quarter, this like 6 months, which of course, I have to, I have it in the back of my mind, no doubt about it. But I really try to work on what is the right thing to do for the customer. And oftentimes, then things happen for you. So things does
mm.
come in every quarter, a thing does happen every, but as long as you work with that mentality and we need to do what is right for the customer, also in the long run, you will you will reach your target or your numbers often because
Mm.
it comes back to you tenfold, right? When you do the right things for the customer.
And do I hear then that this role is very close to the sales role because you are talking about
It is.
customer and target, and usually this is more, regarding sales. So you are
Yes.
more looking at like the yearly sales cycle, I guess.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Okay.
So all of our production, our internal engineers, those kind of things often is not based out of Denmark. So Denmark is like a sales hub. See it
Hmm.
like that, yeah. So we have technical people, we have specialists, and we have sales who are all servicing customers, but not as much internal.
And do you also have a role? I mean, manager, it's also you have an organization, so you need to develop people. Is it also part of, the deputy country manager or country head to also figure it out? You were talking about that at the beginning about finding the right organization. How do you
Mm.
make sure that you have the right people at the right place? Is it also
Yes,
something you have discussion about? And if you
yes,
could explain, of course, not about the names of people, but like how this matrix works. How do
yeah,
you find who needs to move at that time and
yeah.
who is in not the right place and maybe has skills to do another job?
I actually think that is one of the single most important factors of a leadership. So for me, it's very important that we find out the right talent and put them in the right situation for them to thrive. So that also means when we are planning, so long before we go into a year, we know what we want to achieve, or we know the
Mm,
direction we want the company to go into. And knowing that and knowing your people, you need to be close to your people as well. You need to figure out, okay, if I need to reach that next year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years time, whatever horizon you have, these are the people that needs to be in place in order to get there. Some of them
mm,
will be internal, and that's brilliant. Then you put those in place, but some of them you would also need to bring out from external to make
mhm.
sure you have the right skill set to move in that direction. And it's a very you need to be very balanced in how you handle that. But I think it's the single most important factor for sure.
And how do you spot when someone, in your organization needs to go to the next level, or in the other case where someone has potential, but maybe where you were talking about environment where people strive, maybe they cannot succeed yet because their environment kind of doesn't set them up for success, but you want to keep this talent and put them in another role. Is it
Mm,
something, I don't know if it's at your level or you work with HR and managers of managers?
yeah. So it's actually discussions that we have throughout the whole leadership team. So we have to look at, even though people are not reporting into one leader, but maybe there would be better fit in another person or in another leadership team, then we try to move those across. So you have to think about it not as single. Like I think, and that's I think the role of a country manager or a lead for a country is that we need to handle this as one big country. It doesn't matter who people report into, but we need to do
Mm,
what's best for the country and how we get there. And then we need to also be very mindful that the people who actually do the job are the one that make sure that we can reach the success that we want to reach.
Mm,
So we need to be working for them as well. It's not only them working for the leadership, it is definitely the leadership team working for them, making sure that they are in the right position, making sure they have the opportunities that they feel like they can grow in, making sure that they see a future in this company. Those,
mhm.
like, that's our main priority as a leadership team. Because without those amazing people, the nope, like we would be nothing, to be honest.
How big is the organization of Salesforce Denmark? Just that we understand, because of course Salesforce is huge, but how many people are we talking
I
about?
think we're nearly 200 people in Denmark
Okay,
now. Yeah.
so is it at the level where you can know the people and take a bit this decision because you know people, or you already needs to be big forum to take care of knowing everybody and if everybody's in the right seat?
I think it's a perfect size so everybody knows each other. Everybody knows
Mm,
what value everybody brings. And if you are a person, and I'm a person, I love when I work over, I get hype when I get at work. I'm like, hi, how are you? Like those kind of things. It spreads a culture as well to be able to speak to each other and not only focus on your remedy and your
mm.
responsibility. So I think we have a pretty clear vision of the talent that we have in the organization, which is really good.
Yeah, what you were saying, I was kind of picturing all of the country manager that I knew from different country, different companies, and I think they are really the culture vitamin. They are the people that everybody knows,
Yeah.
and it's the person that everybody can go to and talk about
Yes.
personal things, and they
Yes.
really set the personality of this person, set the personality of the office, or at least
One.
this is what I was saying. And I don't know if it's something also that you engineer or it's just happens.
I think you can be mindful of it and try to make it happen, but I think oftentimes it's not something I feel like it's you can just learn. Either you
Mm,
have it in you and it's a natural part of who you are, or it's something you need to work on, and then of course it can happen. But oftentimes, I think for myself, this is probably the areas that I thrive the most. Like I absolutely love that. Being around people, being open, feeling that they can come to me. If I have people that doesn't speak up when something is wrong, then I've failed. So people
mm,
need to be critical. So if I'm saying we need to do this, of course they need to listen. But if they are not providing me feedback, then I would get worried.
mm.
Do you see what I
And
mean?
you
Because
also don't know if you're wrong because they are on the field,
yes, of course.
so you don't have this back and forth information, so
No.
you navigate completely blindly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And doesn't mean that necessarily we will always agree because we won't, but at least there will be open dialogues and understanding of why is it they're saying this? Could we tweak it a bit so it makes more sense for them? Like those kind of discussions are really
Mm.
important.
As you were saying, your role is about translation. So if you
Yes.
explain and that there is conflict, is maybe that not everybody in the room understood what are the implications and what does it mean for them. Maybe it's also change management. I had a question because we mentioned a lot about sales and people management. I see also the role as country leader a lot externally. You of course
Mm,
you have to do this as part of your job, but I feel that there is a lot of like etc. Dots in your role, which is public speaking and being in industry fairs and at conference and nurturing relationship, doing business development. I don't know if it's part of your role in the industry that you are, and if you
mhm.
could explain a bit what are a bit side jobs that you have to do part of these different hats.
Yeah, you will definitely have the responsibility of the local flair, as we discussed as well. So the local presence, to communicate that publicly, to be able to
Mm,
speak into different articles, giving your perspective from a company, like company perspective and things like that. That will be part of your role for sure. I think for some people, it file like it falls more naturally than it does with
mm-hmm,
others, but it is part of the role, and that is something you need to be mindful of. We try to see if there's something we can do across different leaderships as well. It does not always have to be the country manager. It can be, in my situation, like the deputy country manager. It can be leaders from different roles, different technologies. So we try to put in thought leaders from across the
mm.
different business. Yeah.
And so would you say that then a big part of your role is also this, you were saying, translating this message outside your company, to influence a bit the thought leadership or also a bit the white papers, but at talking is a big part of your role?
It's not something you get measured on as such. So
Mm,
for me, to be honest, it's something that I love doing. I love sharing ideas. I love giving thoughts and ideas on that. So for me, it's something that drives me as a person. So this is something that falls naturally to me. But I wouldn't say in my role that it would be something that I would be measured on. No,
mm-hmm.
it wouldn't. So
And,
it's more personal.
and do you have something about sometimes I see industry connection. I see, at least in my company, that people that are in leadership, we ask them also, okay, you were in the board of this company, or you were linked to this company in the past, or you extra, can you create a connection? Because we may have a prospect or a lead about that. Is it also, maybe you, I don't know if you measure it on, but are you also an enabler for some of the salespeople in the ground for bigger deal?
Yeah, 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 for sure. So we often look at you'll have starting a year or mid-year, whenever you evaluate, and you'll be like, okay, these are the companies we would like to speak to. Do anybody knows of this person that we can introduce? We try to do that. But I think it's like if there's people you like to work with and they came and asked you and said, hey, I can see you're connected to this person. Can you introduce me? You do it, right? If it's people you work with and people you like working with and you want to see them succeed, you'll do it. If But it's not, you can't force anybody to share
Connection.
personal connections. Yeah, and we don't do that.
Okay. That's super interesting. Maybe it's also an industry then based topic. I have the feeling that in some industry, some of the country manager, they have a some sort of a business developer hat. Or maybe it's a regional, if because Denmark is such a mature market that
Yeah,
maybe you don't have to develop new relationship. Maybe in other region of the world, you have to grow. Maybe they are not at the sweet spot of 200 people. They're smaller, and the country manager needs to maybe expand the local presence.
yeah. But we have that as well, where we have country leadership talking to different CEOs or CFOs or what have you. But the same is our vice presidents, the different regional vice presidents that we have. They also have those connections. So I think it's probably something you do across all leadership roles in an organization like this. You connect with your customers on different levels, for sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what would you say then to summarize a bit are key key skills to lead a country?
I think, to be honest, be able to articulate the strategy, the
Mm-hmm.
direction that you want to take the company, why we're doing it, and then putting into how we're then going to execute it. I think that's a core role. That is one of the most important things that you'll be able to do, because you need people to trust you and believe in this is the right direction and buy into your vision and follow you in that. So being able to articulate that and get people to like move in the same direction as you do is really, really important. And then I think one of the other really, really important factors is people. Again, like we discussed, how do you handle talent? How do you develop the right people? How do you spot talent? So for me, I have a saying, and I actually did I wrote a LinkedIn post the other day, and it actually like many people reached out to me about it, because I discussed that in sport, you many times invest in people that aren't like, they haven't had the career yet. They haven't had the many games on the field,
Mm,
but they have a potential, right? So when is the right time to invest in those, and being able to spot those people and be like, yeah, maybe you haven't done it before, but I
mm-hmm.
believe that you can transform to or do what we need in this area, even though you haven't done it before. You see me? But you need to be able to see that in people. You need to
Yeah.
be able to spot that before anybody else.
It's so funny because I actually did a similar post the other day because I was like a jury as an assessment center, and this is all about spotting talents. You have
Yeah,
students and you need to figure it out if you can give them a chance to enter in some program that will develop them. And I was reflecting on the fact that why, when someone gives you the lenses of a spotting talent, you can do it, but actually you could do it whenever. Like
yeah,
you could keep this lens all the time because actually there is talents everywhere.
yeah,
And the reflection was a bit, how do you build this skill of spotting talents? Because we often hear that someone needs to give you the chance.
yeah.
But it's also a skill. If you want to build an organization, you need to be able to
Yes.
figure it out. Not only in young talent, you need to, to find the sweet spot when this person is stretched, or when this person is actually in the comfort zone and can give a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about age. It's about, yeah, it's about talent and
Readiness.
see, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And seeing that raw talent before sometimes they even do themselves. The most perfect situation is I point, like I will go to a person on their shoulder and say, I think you're ready. And they'll be like, what? That's the best. Because when you have realized yourself that I'm ready, then you were probably ready a year before that. You
Yeah.
see what I mean?
Yeah. And
Before you
maybe you
actually
need the
speak up.
kick
Yeah,
of
exactly.
someone.
Sometimes, yes.
Then you plant the seed, and someone, you start thinking, maybe I'm ready.
Yeah,
Maybe I need to
exactly.
to
Yeah,
believe.
or somebody believe in you before you do yourself, which is the absolute best idea, I think. So I think you
Super.
you, you need to be able to spot that and be able to transform the business alongside the talents, because those are the people that is going to move the strategy with you.
Super. Look, I think we will finish the part one here because it's super great, and we are already trying to go towards the part two about leadership. So thank you so much. And if people listen only to the part one, I will redirect them on LinkedIn. So then they can see this post, this reflection. I'm also following you. So I think we have similar reflection in common. And then we'll see each other in the part two.